Bernanke said that he was very angry about AIG. AIG was an insurance company to which was attached a hedge fund, the financial speculation, proprietary trading part of AIG. And everybody knows what they did. They issued credit default swaps. That's a kind of derivative, right? You have collateralized debt obligations, you have structured investment vehicles, you have mortgage-backed securities, asset-backed securities, but you have these things called credit default swaps.
Mm-hmm.
AIG had about $500 billion, they say. I'm sure whenever they say that, you've got to multiply that by something between 5 and 10. And it's claimed various news broadcasts, because it's not reportable. There's no transparency. It's not reportable at all. You can keep secret what you have, and even when the government's giving you money. An interesting problem in itself. But the credit default swap exposure of the AIG hedge fund, in-house hedge fund, was thought to be officially $500 billion. Again, really much more. They claim that they've unwound this to $350 billion, but the government has already given them $160 billion. So in its effect, it looks like they're having to buy up these derivatives dollar for dollar and unwind them. Well, in that case, get set to pay about one quadrillion, because that's what the U.S. stake in the world derivatives bubble is. By the way, if you want to know where collateralized debt obligations came from, it turns out that they were invented in the bowels of J.P. Morgan Chase, or Chase Manhattan, at the time that this was done. In 1995, a young guy called Blythe Masters invented the first credit default swap. And he said, this is a way to manage risk. Now, what it meant, though, was that people who were not insurance companies and who were not subjected to normal insurance company regulations began proliferating these things.
This was right in the middle of the Clinton era. We got to remember that, too.
Oh, of course. No. This is the bipartisan effort. Remember, derivatives were basically illegal from 1936 until 1982. So stupid Reagan gets first prize. Then we get Wendy Graham, Commodity Futures Trading Commission, at the end of Bush the Elder administration, promises a safe haven. The attempt of Brooksley Born of Commodity Futures Trading Commission under Clinton to regulate, or at least make them reportable, is beaten back by Bullet Bob Rubin of Citibank and Goldman Sachs and Clinton and Barkey and Greenspan, and then maintained by Bernanke. So they're all profoundly guilty on the derivatives front. So AIG it looks like they pyramided collateralized debt obligations on top of the credit default swaps. The derivatives are not just a single layer. They're a pyramid. And you want to what was done in the 1920s with utility holding companies. You pyramid them, so you pyramid the profits. And, of course, if it goes into loss, then you're pyramiding the losses, so you get exponential losses. Now, if we look at the banking sector right now today the stock market didn't go down. It went up 150 points. But Citibank today lost 7.5%. You can now buy a share of Citibank for $1.13. Citibank is going to break the buck probably this week. Citibank will be a penny stock. Even more ominous, because
penny stocks. Yeah.
Penny stock, sure. Yeah. AIG is a penny stock right now. J.P. Morgan Chase is now below $20. I think a year ago at this time, I was telling you that if Citibank went below 20, that would be a real crisis. Now, J.P. Morgan has broken below 20. They lost 8.15% today. So this is getting quite ugly. This is a really bad day.
Yeah.
Let me also call your attention to the fact that insurance companies hold derivatives. It's one of the reasons we've got to double the Social Security pension for everybody so you can actually live on it. Because if you think that you have annuities or mutual funds or other investments with these insurance companies, this looks grim. The Prudential Insurance Company, you know, the one with the strength of Gibraltar, if you look at their stock, it's down 75% from the recent peak. If we look at the Hartford, insurance of all kinds, down, I think, about 90% from the peak. Metropolitan Life, right, MetLife, Snoopy the dog, down about 50%. Mass Mutual down about 35%. Cigna, right, Connecticut General Health Insurance, down about 65%.
Wow.
And then you look up Geico. I was looking for Geico, right? The little salamander.
Mm-hmm.
That is owned by Warren Buffoon. You know Warren Buffoon.
$2 billion.
Of,
$2 billion. Yes, he's lost $2 billion allegedly.
Yeah, I mean his stock is expensive. I mean his stock hit a peak of $140,000 per share, but today it was trading at about half that, at about $70,000 to $75,000 per share. So Warren Buffoon, the great expert, has lost 50%. Now, Mr. Buffoon is the guy who gave several billion to Bill Gates, the monopolist, and Raptor. And Buffoon was also big on Barkey, except now he's become disaffected too. So we have to have a list of the disaffected, right? Maureen Dowd, Warren Buffett, and so forth. Now, in the hearings with Bernanke, they don't say derivatives. It's amazing. It's like in the Victorian era, it was parts of the body. Or something like this, right?
I got it, sure.
Expletives.
Yeah, right.
You can't say it.
Yep,
or, in recent times, the politically correct doctrine is, certain racial epithets are absolutely taboo. Today, it is the word derivative, which is absolutely taboo. And I think the reason, of course, is once you say derivatives caused the Depression, you've also said who caused the Depression, because the average Joe the Schmo has nothing to do with derivatives. Never created one.
When these were Webster, when these were created in the mid '90s, the people behind this, the real thinkers, had to know this day was coming.
Oh, well, they got the Nobel Prize, right? Black and Scholes got the Nobel Prize for their model, because the problem with derivatives always was, who can tell you what this is worth? There is no exchange for most of them, right? The structured notes. So they said, here we have an equation. And they got the Nobel Prize, and then long-term capital management, using that technique, went bankrupt and blew a $5 billion hole in the world banking system in 1998. But now, it does come up. They talk about toxic assets. That means derivatives. They say complex instruments. That means derivatives. These products. That means derivatives. Here, a colloquy here. We have the new senator from Virginia, Warner, right? Not the old Warner, not Mr. Elizabeth Taylor, but now the new Warner, right? Austerity Democrat. So Warner says, Mr. Bernanke, talking to Helicopter Ben in the Senate Budget Committee, should we regulate these products, derivatives? He says, is transparency enough? In other words, he wants to make them transparent. In other words, make derivatives reportable. That would be progress. It's too late for that, though.
But he called them products.
Products. Toxic assets, exotic financial products, he talks about them, new products, and then he does say credit default swaps. But as far as I could hear in this hearing, nobody said derivatives. They had to say credit default swaps and a couple of other specific terms. And then Warner says, do we need more? Is there a societal value for these instruments? These instruments. Meaning derivatives.
What theater this is.
It's the kabuki theater of the derivatives. So he says, is there social value? No, these are good questions. I was actually surprised to hear Warner say these things. He says, should we have a bright line prohibition? A bright line prohibition. So at least some recognition of the fact that derivatives have to be outlawed. And, of course, Bernanke then says, in some cases, these products should be prohibited. But again, my answer is wipe them all out.
Yeah. Who's going to decide?
Shred
This
them,
is absurd.
delete them, destroy them, make them into wallpaper, make them for wrapping fish, for birdcage liners, whatever you want, but get rid of them.
I couldn't agree more. It's not a question of picking and choosing, folks. Yeah. Webster will be back tomorrow night, our second hour.
Please remember, Surviving the Cataclysm from ProgressivePress.com. ProgressivePress.com.
Look right under Webster's name and guests at Rense.com. You'll see it there, and you can take the link. Thanks a lot, my friend. Talk to you tomorrow.
Good night.
All right, it was quite an hour for you, always. Be right back in just a few minutes with hour number 2.